Actually, while I'm doing that, I'm just going to grab my iPad. Oh, actually, should probably, yeah, I'll get my iPad. Should be fine on my phone, actually. So I'm always in two minds. Yeah, we'll be able to see the speaker. So when you start speaking, we'll all go on mute and that'll be fine.
All right. Okay.
Cool. I will just start presenting my screen. Did you want to stop presenting for a second there, lagapan?
Yep.
Just see what that looks like. Yeah, cool. That's a good view.
So will the questions come up in the chat on the side?
Yeah, I'll share around the link.
Cool. That's a good
view. Okay, just added it to our Slack so you can find the bring this down. Sorry, I'm a bit of a scatterbrain when I'm in the process of setting things up. But yeah, we'll see the questions come through on the obviously on YouTube, but also we can get questions on Slack as well. So we'll, send them through to you. But maybe if you keep the YouTube open on silent, that's a way, because, RTMP servers or whatever, there's always like a 3 to 15 second delay between Zoom and,
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me, yeah.
Maybe if you keep.
Yeah, there is a delay.
Yeah, there definitely is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I'm going to be, so when I present, I'm not going to be seeing the YouTube video. So we can just keep the questions towards the end and then I can stop presenting and look at the questions.
Yeah, I think that's the easiest. You don't want to stress yourself out with, trying to keep track of too many things. We can all do that for you.
All right.
So yeah, don't worry too much.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah. I'm going to say a few words at the start, just present a few slides and stuff like that. So and do a bit of an intro.
Yeah.
Hey, Simon. What sort of shirt is that, mate? You're looking very professional.
I know, semi-professional. No t-shirt.
Job interview today, mate.
Not quite. Anyway, lagapan, really good to meet you. I'm super excited for your presentation today.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I'm excited to present to this audience, Australian audience. Thanks for connecting. I'm looking forward to more collaborators from Australia on Amanson.
Yeah. It's a super interesting project. I've been following it for probably a year or so now. Data governance comes up frequently. Data governance and data discovery comes up frequently in conversations. So really excited to hear a bit more of a background. So yeah, thanks for joining us. What time is it for you?
It's going to be 7 o'clock in the evening here.
Okay.
Yeah. Is it 1 o'clock? Hello, everywhere? Or?
Yeah.
1 o'clock in Melbourne and Sydney, and then midday in Brisbane, daylight savings.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, so, all right, it's all happening. What's everyone been up to recently? Any interesting side projects you've been working on? Already got 14 people on the live stream, so hopefully they're all coming in thick and fast.
Mhm.
I wonder if we've got anyone dialing in from the States today.
Oh, yeah, that'll be interesting.
Do we get more people on the YouTube now, or do most people still come in via Zoom?
I haven't been publicizing Zoom anymore. I think people are just finding it a lot easier to jump on YouTube. So yeah, just kind of like do it that way. Simon, have you met Nitish? He's head of data engineering at Afterpay. But
G'day, Nitish. How are you?
Good. How are you, Simon?
Very good. Very good. I think I've seen some of your LinkedIn posts. Good to meet you in person.
Yes, same here. I'm an avid follower. I look at everything you've done with the Raspberry Pi stuff. I look forward to your new innovations on that.
Yeah. It's a wide list of things in the backlog. There's some cool technology out there.
I think your flight controller stuff from recent, that was great.
Oh, thank you. Yes. Any excuse to play with more kit. It's always good fun.
Hi, it's been a couple of
Hey,
months.
how are you? Yeah, it's been a couple of months. How is Afterpay doing? How are you?
Doing well. Going on to different new geographies every month.
Yeah, I've been following Afterpay on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
My ex-colleague joined from US. His name is Vaibhav.
Oh, yeah, great guy. Yeah, we actually spoke to him yesterday.
Yeah, he told me he took a look at data stack, and he was talking to me about it. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And Francisco, I don't think we met. I know you by reputation. I know you're one of the organizers of the events, so I've seen your work. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Nitesh. Yeah, good to see you in person. I saw your post as well on LinkedIn as well.
So Francisco organizes the Brisbane Data Engineering Meetup. And he's you're at Flight Center, and then pre-COVID and stuff like that. And now you're at is it Komatsu or
Komatsu Mining? Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I've always been fascinated in this sort of data engineering problems that you find in mining companies. I'm sure there's a lot of IoT and things like that going on.
A lot of sensor data.
Yeah, I can imagine. Very good. Oh, not too long. Yeah, my experience with Amanson is like I've just sort of spun up the Helm chart. I think the tutorial that you've got for Amanson is more based on, using Docker. And so you need to sort of, I guess, make the endpoints available to local host, and then run the scripts to load all of the test data up and stuff like that. So that was good fun, but I sort of abandoned ship because I just couldn't get the the Elasticsearch indexes up and running. Perhaps, I'm pretty sure I just needed to create the index and then it would have worked. But anyway,
like the data loader script should do that for you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so once you run it, it'll just publish a new index. So I'd be interested in knowing, like you mentioned, we haven't focused on Helm charts. It's mostly like Docker and things like I've seen some conversations in Slack. Maybe I can point you to that after the talk.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. That'd be great.
Do you accept PRs? I'm sure Peter can can do you a fancy home chart.
Thanks for the faith, Simon. I'll give it a go, perhaps. Yeah. Yeah, cool. Well, just a couple more minutes and then we'll get going. Yeah, I'm interested to hear what people think about usually we have evening meetups, but I thought an evening meetup would be pretty rough on you. Coming from San Francisco, so yeah, decided to switch to the midday one. So I'm interested to see whether we get a really good turnout, or what the impression is, because a lot of people are still working from home here in Australia, even though our case numbers are quite low. I'm guessing in San Fran, you're pretty much all working from home in the tech industry.
Yeah, the cases here are nowhere close to being low.
Yeah.
Most of the big companies have said you can work from home up until June 2021.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's another 6 to 8 months before anyone gets into office. Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder what the new year will hold for us, because potentially people might sort of start going en masse back to the office in the new year, I think. But it really depends on whether we get, how quickly we get a vaccine. But yeah, we've managed to keep case numbers pretty low. So I wonder. Anyway, it's 1 o'clock. My name's Peter Hansons. Welcome everyone to the Data Engineering Meetup. We've brought together the Brisbane, Sydney and Melbourne data engineering meetups. You can find us on Twitter at Data Eng Meetup. And that's our awesome data engineering conference website that we held a couple of months ago. All of the videos are still up on YouTube. So do give them a flick through and let us know what you think. So today, before I jump into the topic of today's meetup, I wanted to just quickly take you through an AWS Community Day that we're running in November. Well, it's going to be a series of days. We've got IoT, machine learning days, and because I'm involved in the organization, I just said, let's do a data day. I think it'll be great fun. So at the moment, we've got a registration page, which I'll make a bit more public soon enough. But we've got a call for papers at the moment. So if anyone in the data engineering community wants to submit to that, you're most welcome. It's not limited to any particular geography. We like to hear from people in the Australia and New Zealand region, but it's definitely open to worldwide, as long as you can produce a video and make it on the day to answer some live Q&A questions, then you're absolutely most welcome. So do check that out. CFP's probably closing in just over a week, so you might have to get your skates on for that one. Yeah, so we've got lagapan Sethurum. Hopefully I haven't done your name too much of a disservice. He's currently a software engineer at Facebook, but he's also one of the founding engineers of Amanson. Amansen's a data discovery tool. I won't try to describe it too much and take away his thunder. I'm sure he'll do a really great job of it today. And he's our only speaker today. We're going to get a half an hour talk from him, and then we've got plenty of time for Q&A. If you do want to ask a question, there's obviously Data Engineers Meetup Slack group. Also, you can ask questions on Data Eng AU on the YouTube channel. So that's all good. Yeah, so already said all of that. With me today, obviously, I've got Nitish Matthew. He's head of data engineering at Afterpay. Thanks so much for joining us. He actually organized for lagapan to join today, so we've got a lot of appreciation for your networking. And also we've got Francisco Liwa and Simon Aubrey, who are co-organizers of the Brisbane and Sydney Data Engineering Meetup. But yeah, so thanks so much for joining in. And without further ado, take it away, lagapan. You should be able to take over the screen.
Sure. You might have to stop sharing.
Yeah. So,
All right. Okay. Yeah, can you all see my screen? See my slides?
yep.
All right. Okay. Yeah. So thank you all for coming to this talk. I understand this is a bit of a not your regular time for meetups. So thank you for making the change to make it work for US time zone. Like Peter mentioned, my name is Lagapan. I'm currently a software engineer at Facebook. I was previously with Lyft, where I helped scale its data platform. I saw the company grow from 400 engineers to 5,000 employees. So there was a lot of interesting data scale problems. And one of the tools we developed there was Amanson. In this talk, I'll just walk us through the journey of developing Amanson and trying to solve data discovery problem. In this talk, yeah, we'll first begin by describing what data discovery is, what we mean by data discovery. What are some of the challenges in data discovery? Why is it a problem? Why do we need a tool like Amanson? And then I'll give us a feel for what are some of the features Amanson has as of today. And then we can talk a bit about the technical side of Amanson architecture. What are some of the challenges we faced, some of the technical decisions we had to make, and then finally conclude by talking about where the open source community is, what is our impact with this tool, and what we plan to do in the future. Yeah, so let's begin by talking about what is data discovery. Why is it such a hot topic now, where so many companies developing tools? As many of you know, most of the companies are moving more towards data-driven decision-making process. Almost every persona, every employee in the company needs access to data to make decisions for their day-to-day operations. These days, it's not just confined to analyst or data scientist persona. Everybody, including product managers, general managers. Lyft had this concept of general managers who were responsible for a particular region. Engineering managers and customers support people. Everybody needs access to data. And if you take a look at the data-driven decision-making process, it's typically a 4-step process. The first 2 steps is all about, the first step is always trying to search and find some relevant data sets that can help with your analysis. Once you've found 1 or 2 or multiple of these data sets, the second step is just to understand what it contains, whether it's useful for what you're trying to do, whether it's up to date, whether it contains all the information you need. And the third step is running the experiment, doing the actual analysis, visualization. And finally, it's once you've run the analysis, once you're happy with the experimentation, you make your decision, you share your insights, you make it into a ETL or a dashboard, and then rinse and repeat. So in this 4-step process, what we mean by data discovery is the first 2 steps. It is searching and finding data, and then understanding what this data is, what this data holds. So the way we are describing it sounds like the first 2 steps must be the most easiest and less time consuming, and the majority of the work should be in step 3. But turns out this is a very frustrating, time consuming process based on what we've seen at Lyft and at other companies. I can illustrate that with an example. A little bit of warning. This example was written for pre-COVID days when we used to meet in person and hang out in person. With everything being remote, this example doesn't hold true, but let's just pretend for a moment we are in pre-COVID days. Let's just assume that you want to join this data engineering meetup organizing team. You want to help them. You're an analyst and you want to help them. Let's say you're given a task, which is to predict the attendance for today's talk. So the goal being, we want to help the office team find a big enough room, find the number of chairs, get enough chairs in the room, and then order food and pizza and drinks. So everybody is taken care of. You as a new analyst who's enthusiastic, say, okay, I think I got this. I'm going to look at what is the attendance for the previous meetups, and then I'm going to go from there. This seems like a sound idea, but then here is where the problem starts. We just, as a new person in the team, we don't know if this data for previous meetup has been recorded anywhere. Is it in an Excel sheet? Is it in an email list? Is it in some sort of table? Or is it even recorded? So with these questions, people generally start off by asking around. You generally ask other members in the team, you ask your manager, ask a friend, and generally companies have Slack channels or email lists where you would often notice analysts asking questions, and there is usually long threads of trying to find what it is. And most companies these days have use versioning system to version their, to commit their ETL logic. So you can also try to search in GitHub repos and try to find some ETL that produces this table that you're looking at, and then try to go from there. Let's say after doing one or multiple of these things, we find a table in Hive that says hosted events. So this sounds promising. So what we do, we take a closer look at what this table contains and what are some of the columns. And let's say, for example, we see 3 columns. We see booked, registered, and attendance. Just going by the names, it looks like attendance is something that we should use. But what are the other 2? What is booked and what is registered? And what is the difference between these? So this can happen in real life when you look at a table with 50 to 70 columns, when the columns are like pretty much named closely together. Some of them, the usual things you would see is something like, so there is a suffix that says deprecated, or there's a suffix that says new, and then there's something that says old, and usually there's confusion around which one to use. So what we do is we try to look for further documentation or any comments, or we try to find who's the owner, who created this table, or who's maintaining this table. And sometimes we just try to run select start queries to look at the actual data to make sense of what these 3 columns contain. Maybe all 3 of them contain the same data, in which case you can use any of them. Maybe 2 of them are nulls, so in which case you just use the 3rd one. But you just keep going. And like you see, at every step, there is more questions and more frustration without actually getting to a result. And at Lyft, we had a Slack channel that's called the Science channel, and there's an on-call who answers all these questions. And the threads are usually like 100 messages, and at the end of 100 messages, the person who's asking the question is still not clear on whether this is the right data set or whether he can trust this data set for his analysis. And we've noticed that on average, based on this is based on user survey and interviews, we've noticed that at least at Lyft, people spend about 1/3 of their time in just trying to find and understand data. This is roughly about 1 or 2 days per week. And if you pay closer attention to this entire data-driven decision-making process, the discovery in itself doesn't add any value. It's the analysis that provides value. And we want all of our data scientists and analysts and everybody spending more time and creative energy in the analysis space rather than in the discovery. And the discovery felt like something we could build a tool and automate it and make it easy on everyone. And this is what led us to build Amansen. A fun fact about Amansen, this is something we get all the time, is like, what is Amansen? Well, how did he get this name? It's named after a Norwegian explorer, Roland Amundsen. He was the first person to go to South Pole and North Pole. Yeah, Amundsen, we built it at Lyft, and we officially launched it end of 2018. We made it open source October 2019, exactly 1 year ago. And 2 months ago, we joined Linux Foundation. August, we joined Linux Foundation. Yeah, so when we developed this, we met with a lot of companies that had similar products, and we spoke to them and tried to get some information around what worked and what didn't work. And a lot of what you would see is like based on the interviews we did. Amanson, this is Amanson landing page. As you can tell, it looks pretty similar to Google search, where right at the center there is a search bar that lets you type in some query and then shows you a set of results. It also has other tabs that you can use, other sections that you can use to begin browsing. One of the most requested feature and most used feature is this popular tables right at the bottom. This contains tables in this case, but it can contain dashboards and other things ordered based on usage. Usage here means number of queries against that asset, either a table or a dashboard. Dashboard, it could be number of views or number of times the dashboard was refreshed. There are also tags that you can click on and then browse all the tables with a certain tag. Tags, you can imagine something like a project name tag, or let's say we have a growth DS. The growth team can tag all their tables as growth. Or let's say we have machine learning who's doing new model, they can tag all the tables with that project name and you can browse. And let's say you can also bookmark some tables that you have searched and found in the past and you often use. So these are things. This is the landing page. And then as you type a search, Amansen prompts displays as helps you fine tune your search. It tells you what all you can search in. You can search for table in data sets. You can search for table in dashboards, or maybe search for table in username or something like that. And then it also displays a few results based on usage that are likely to match what you're searching for. Once you search, it displays a couple of results. And once you click on the result, this is the page you will land on. This is the details page. This particular screenshot is for table details. Right at the top here, it displays the schema name and the table name, and then it says which database this is from. And in this case, it's Hive. And right below that, in the left pane, it displays details at the table level. So it's things like table description, which you can edit as a user. You can edit and update if you see the table description is not up to date. Other things like this is date range here means high watermark and low watermark. Basically, when was the earliest partition, this table has data, and what is the newest partition, this table has data. And then tags, which is something you can edit and then add tags. And last updated is an indication of when was the ETL for this table last run. And owners, again, who's the owner of this table? We generally prefer a team name as an owner, so that if somebody in this list is either on vacation or on out of office or left the company or moved to a different team, it doesn't become a dead end. You have some team who you can talk to. And the other most commonly used feature is this frequent users. This is a list of top 5 users who have used this table the most. And this is ordered by usage, again, query usage. We pass the query logs and then map the user to the table. Another new feature that we added is you can highlight data incidents that are happening. In Lyft, we had an integration with Atlassian Jira. So as soon as you create a SEP ticket, it gets pulled in and shown here. But you can also just click on report issue and then add the link. So on the right is the columns that this table contains. If you look at each of the columns up close, it displays some information about the columns. It displays the type, it displays the description, and then a couple of things around the stats for this column for a particular partition. Some of the stats that will be useful are like count star, count distinct, and then distinct values and nulls. And if you have a Boolean, it can say like number of truths and number of false. We've seen this to be very useful, this along with the watermark to be very useful, as most of the data engineers and analysts come in and then look at their table to see if the ETL has landed, if the new partition is landed in the data warehouse, and then if they can start their analysis process. Amanson also lets you preview table, display some sample rows from the table. There's a preview button at the top right, this gives you a feel for what this table contains and just helps you get a sense of whether this is something you're looking for or not. And yeah, and this is a new recent addition. This is something we added this year. We worked with Mode, which is a reporting dashboarding tool that we use within Lyft, and we integrated Mode with Amanson. So as we integrate dashboard, we can actually tie the dashboard back to the table that it uses. And in the table details page, we can display all the dashboard that this table is powering. Since we index the dashboards, the next thing is just support searching the dashboards and similar results to table details. And in the dashboard details, you can see things about when was it last run and when was it created and all the tables that it uses. And the other most fancy thing is like it can show you all the queries that power this dashboard. And one of the most frequent requested feature is this thumbnail that we were able to get with Mode. This is a quick small preview of what the dashboard looks like. In this screenshot, it's not very interesting because it's a table. Usually with charts, it's easy to like see what this contains. And then you can click on open dashboard to go into Mode and then see the dashboard there once you've indexed. The other data asset we index is people. This is something that our user interviews revealed as something that they want. If you look at the table details as a user, it can show all the data sets that you have created, all the data sets that you've bookmarked, all the frequently used tables, and all your dashboards. This is a segue into a future feature. This is a segue into a feature that we're thinking about, which is maybe building teams and things like that. So as soon as you join the company, you can go look up your team and go look up all the people in the team to figure out all the data sets and dashboards that your team often uses, and like immediately gain some context without having to like request people and then just ping them on Slack and things like that. So it's kind of like the information is pushed to you by just looking at this page. Yeah, and with that, we can take a look at the architecture of Amansen, go deep into the technical side of things. Amansen is a microservice architecture. It has 3 microservices. It has a front-end service that displays all the web page, lets the user interact with it, do the search, edit the metadata, and things like that. The search is the front-end service interacts with the search service. As the name says, it's the search bar that you see on the landing page and at the top on every page. We use Elasticsearch to power the search. And we also have a metadata service that serves all the table details and all the other metadata that we saw on Amansen. We use Neo4j graph database for the backend, and we index everything as a graph, nodes and edges in there. We also have a data builder ingestion library. It's pretty similar to Apache Goblin from LinkedIn. It's a ETL-like framework that you can use to integrate with all of your data sources. At Lyft, it was Hive, Redshift, Presto, GitHub source files, Airflow. In the open source, it was Snowflake and Apache Atlas and things like that. So at Lyft, we would build this, we would use this data builder library to build a job and then schedule it through Airflow and run it twice a day to fetch all this metadata and ingest into Neo4j, and then also convert them as search documents and then ingest to create a new index in Elasticsearch. Yeah, and while we were doing this, there was a couple of interesting technical choices we had to make. And one of the most often asked questions is like, why choose a graph database instead of a regular MySQL or a RDBMS? So to answer this question, let's take a look at the typical data ecosystem in companies. Most companies have applications running in production or client-side apps, iOS and Android apps that are emitting, that have logging SDK ingested in them, and then that they are emitting analytical events. For example, in our case, let's just call the application as A and events as B. this analytical event usually goes through a streaming ingest pipeline and then lands in the data warehouse. In our case, it was Hive. And then once it lands, we used to call it raw table. And we would run a bunch of ETL jobs through Airflow as our scheduler, and then produce fact and dimension tables, which is Hive table have. And usually these tables have bajillion columns, like 50 to 100 or even more columns. And these columns, a subset of them are used by users, consumed by users through various forms. So if you look at the data flow, this is how to capture it. And we felt a graph would be like very a natural fit to capture this workflow with this flow of data. And if you remember the table details page, this would be represented in a graph like this, in this fashion. And for us to compile this table details page, all that we had to do was to just go to this table node, use that as the anchor node, and then read all its edges and then nodes, and then just send it to front end. So this was a very simple, highly efficient Cypher query, a single query and single network hop that we had to do, and then send it over to front end. Whereas if we had to do this in a MySQL database, it would be a table, it would be several tables. It'll either be multiple queries or it'll be like a single query with joins across multiple tables with lots of filters and things like that. So we felt a graph is more natural fit for these kind of capturing relations and nodes. Also, one other interesting thing is as we add more nodes, more different. So right now, when we started, it was just a single node type. Most of them are tables and related to tables. As we added user as a node type, and as we added dashboard, it was very easy to like simply create that node and add an edge to this table, and simply create a user node and add an edge to the column. And it was easy to extend as we found more and more applications. Square is using it for privacy, and they defined different types of nodes to tag the tables. Some of the nodes that they defined are like PII semantics or privacy semantics, which is to indicate whether this column contains PII and what level of PII it is. Is it like, is just the column in itself is very sensitive, or does the column along with other columns reveal sensitive information? And those kind of different PII semantics. So they were able to create a new type and then tag each of the columns based on that. And also they were doing encryption or masking while storing, and they wanted this metadata to be stored along with in the graph. So they created a different node type and they stored it. So we felt graph was a good choice, and so far it's worked well for us. The other decision we had to make was to figure out, figure out which one should be the source of truth. Amanson lets users edit metadata. Like if you see a table description to be out of date or a column description to be out of date, you have the power to like edit it as you see fit. And that's what we noticed is one of a very much used feature in Amansen. And as we were designing this, we had to make a decision between whether to use Neo4j as Amansen as a source of truth, or whether should we use the actual database as a source of truth. Our initial decision was to use our actual database as the source of truth, which is Hive in our case. So a user edits a metadata, metadata gets persisted in Neo4j, and then we send it over to Hive, and Hive persists it. And next time we do the data builder, it just comes back in the same format. This seemed to work well, except that in our case, the Hive tables could be updated outside of Amansen. Our data engineering team commits all the ETL files to GitHub, and every new ETL or every change needs to go through a review process, and they're committed to GitHub, and then there's a deploy process that lets Airflow pick up the new ETL files, and then they run ETL jobs and update Hive. So depending on the type of ETL, some ETLs actually drop the table and then recreate them on a daily run. And this leads to, so the ETL files had metadata in them. So the table descriptions would get updated on a daily basis. So if a user updates it on Amanson, and the next run of ETL would just simply overwrite the update and then would put it back to whatever was in the GitHub file. So for us to actually truly persist the edited metadata, we would not only have to update Hive, we would also have to update the GitHub file via a PR and paste the on-call. And given the adoption rate and given the number of edits we get in a week, this wasn't going to fly. Our on-calls would be pretty annoyed that they have to review one-line changes on a daily basis, and then there's a deployment that's happening after every one-line change. So we decided to use Amanson as the source of truth. So Amanson would just fetch the metadata from Hive for the very first time when it sees a table. And after that, it's just whatever is in Amanson. And we've made this decision, and we've had the company rally behind Amanson to use it as a source of truth. We do snapshots and backups so that if the cluster crashes, we have backups to restore it from. Yeah, so with that, I would like to talk about how it was received in Lyft and what was our open source journey. Within Lyft, people loved Amansen. That was very heartening to see. It had an organic growth and steady growth. We released around September of 2018, and then we've reached about 750 weekly active users, about over 4,000 employees. And then we've indexed almost all the tables in Amansen, so it's about 150K. And we also index employees, and we have about 4,000 employees pages in Amansen. This is some of the feedback we've gotten. 50% of the questions could be answered by a simple search, which is what we were targeting, and that's nice to see. And the other interesting thing for us was we were thinking that this will only be used by data scientists and analysts, but it was, to our surprise, we also saw engineering, management, ops, and marketing folks use this on a daily basis. Although the penetration is low, it's still a lot more than what we expected it to be. So that's also very nice for us to see. And we open sourced in October, exactly 1 year ago. We have an active community. The community is very helpful. If you ask a question, you probably get a reply within an hour or within a day. And then there's people all around the world using it. It's not just US, there's folks in Europe, there's folks in Australia who are replying to messages. So that's very, it's grown to 900 people community within a year. And the companies, it's across 150 companies from what we can tell. 20 companies are using it actively in production on a daily basis. And some of the companies are Reddit, ING, Square, and Workday. And the community has prominent names like Expedia, Oracle, and everybody. And the folks, and the other thing is we've also had people contribute back to Amansen, which we didn't expect when we first open sourced. We thought this was going to be something that Lyft is doing and nobody's going to use it, but it was very nice for us to see the adoption and the response we've gotten. ING is one of our biggest supporters. They contributed Apache Atlas integration to Amansen. Square is using it for privacy. They're using Amazon's Neptune. So they were able to separate Neo4j and then use Amazon Neptune. And then they're now contributing Gremlin, which is a replacement, which is another graph query language. So you're not tied to Cypher query that Neo4j uses. That's also very good to see. And then we built integration with Mode. We got contributions for Tableau integrations that just landed a couple of weeks ago. We also had BigQuery and Snowflake from the open source. So it's like you can use it in a wide variety of data warehouses now. Yeah, I want to talk a little about what we have planned for the future, and then open the floor for questions after that. So as we developed this as we developed Amansen, we noticed that having a rich metadata catalog would open it up for more use cases and not just data discovery and trust. As soon as we open sourced and we saw Square use it for privacy, and then we within Lyft were using it for compliance purposes, GDPR, CCPA, financial. CCPA is California compliance that went into effect this year, start of this year. So we were using the graph to figure out PII data and how the PII data was flowing through. And security team was sending us tags through an API to tag tables and dashboards as sensitive information. We also noticed like data quality is something that can be surfaced in Amansen. We can use the metadata catalog for data quality metrics, and cost. Obviously, we can integrate that cost information in the table details, and then with the owner information, you can actually attribute the cost, ETL cost, or the data platform cost to that that owning team. That is one area we're trying to find more applications that Amansen can solve. And also, like, yeah, you can read about Squire's use of Amansen in this blog. And the other area is we're trying to develop, we're trying to index more metadata. So far, we have data sets and tables. We are working on, we have integration with Tableau and more. We are working on more, the open source community is working on more integrations. We've indexed people, there's still some more work to do. The next set of things that we are scoping out is indexing streams, Kafka streams, Kinesis streams, and indexing event registry, the schema registry. So you can tie it back from schema registry, tie it from application to schema registry to actual Hive table and ETL and the full lineage. And workflows, ML workflows and all those can be indexed. We're looking into indexing all of that. So you have this full graph of how the data flows. This is the projects that are more near term and could be landing in the next few months. The team is working on developing a deeper data lineage integration. Right now we use CompilerWorks. CompilerWorks is a company we use, and they parse our query logs to build lineage. But we're trying to build something natively within Amansen and open source it. One of the motivation is Airflow is also building lineage, so we're trying to leverage that information. And the other is views, are integrating with views, Presto views and Hive views in a better way. Right now, it's not working well, so more we want to fine tune the integration a bit more. And third, one of the most requested feature is about ACL integration. We have ACL integrated for previewing the data, but not for editing descriptions. But this is something that we can add to Amansen and get it there. And the fourth thing is this is often a feedback saying the search is not good, but it turns out that the search is actually doing what you expect it to do. It's just not obvious why you got this result. Usually when you search for a table and sometimes you end up with a dashboard and you don't know, and the dashboard is not named in the same fashion as the table. And you're wondering why this dashboard showed up. It turns out the dashboard is using the table that you're looking for. So this shows up as one of the results, and it could very well be the analysis you're looking to do. So somebody has already done it and you can just use the dashboard. But because there is, you don't know why it showed up, it can often lead to frustration and confusion. So we're trying to display some context around why this result came about, either through highlighting and things like that. Sometimes it matches a column and it's not obvious immediately. So we want to do some highlighting and things like that. Yeah, and that's pretty much what I had for today. With that, I'll open the floor for questions.
Well, first of all, yeah, thanks so much for joining us today, lagapan. I think that was like a fascinating presentation. You sort of took us through the why and how it's implemented, and all of the use cases. I forgot to mention at the start that data engineering and creating awesome data discovery tools isn't your only claim to fame. You're also part of a performing group that does stage shows Bollywood style to raise funds for non-for-profits in India. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a hobby of mine. I've been doing that for a while now.
Yeah, I guess it's a good foil for all of the technical stuff that you do, and yeah, really great work. So awesome stuff. We've had a ton of questions come through on the chat.
Yeah.
I'll go in reverse order. Nudger Nudgy, he's I think he's a solutions architect for GCP here in Sydney. Thank you for your nice presentation. Really liked it. Would love to know if you have any plan to use crawlers for the metadata collection.
Crawlers for the metadata collection. So I
guess, yeah. So probably how you're collecting metadata is, usually most databases have metadata tables that you pull through.
Yeah.
And so you just read directly from them. But I guess, say if you've just got a text file stored in like a blob storage like S3, you might just have a bit of Python code that sort of tries to detect what fields are available in that text file.
Yeah, so it's within Lyft, we just connected directly with the Hive Metastar. But I think the data builder library has a flat file extraction. You can just point it to anything that you want. It's just about like wiring the data builder to read from wherever location you want. So you can read from file system or S3. That's what I use.
Ned Letcher has asked, big challenge for data dictionaries is metadata going stale. How much of the data in Amansen is programmatically generated versus manually created? I guess you sort of touched on that in your presentation. And do you have strategies for addressing this challenge?
Yeah, so one of the things is process. We had data engineering team had a checklist of things that they would verify before approving any ETL changes. And one of them includes if you're changing a ETL logic that changes the computation for a column, you need to update the description. And if you're adding a new ETL, you need to add some rich metadata before it gets approved. So we had that process going on. And then the other way is like, because we made Amanson accessible to everybody, this provided the power for anyone to update the metadata. Often you would notice somebody who's a lead analyst works on a product for some time, develops all the ETL, and then he moves on to a different project and a new person takes over. And this person changes the logic a bit, and that leads to metadata being stale. So they would come to Amansen and update it. And the big motivation for majority of them is like they don't want to go on call and keep field the same question over and over again. They don't want to answer the same question. So they would rather, when the first time they get asked, they would update Amansen and then point them to Amansen going forward. So it saves them a ton of time. And then what we've noticed is there are people who would look it up on Amansen as a way of like wiki search to try and find the information themselves before they go ask this question. So that's what we were trying to influence, and we were able to do that at Lyft.
Yeah, I think it's really great. You can almost feel like, maybe the next evolution of this tool is to almost create like self-service data engineering, because like you can sort of like find where to get particular data, and the graph database kind of allows you to sort of link that table to this other table with those particular keys. And, potentially you could get to that point, couldn't you?
Yeah. There is some discussion about key mappings, foreign key and primary key mappings, and like trying to use tags and column level badges in a way to like say, all right, here is how these two tables are usually joined. Here is the foreign key. There's discussion, and if any of you are interested, I would love for you to like come and contribute to the discussion there.
Yeah, I think that's that self-service data engineering. That sounds like probably do us all out of a job. But anyway, or maybe our jobs will become much more interesting. Raymond has asked, have you got Databricks and Delta tables integration yet?
Yeah, there is some open source work that was started, but I don't think it was completed. We did reach out to Databricks and they were open about us integrating it, but they wanted us or open source to do the work. So I think there is some work in progress, and unfortunately, I'm not up to date on what's the latest on that.
Yeah,
I don't think it's complete. I don't think you can work right out of the box.
Yeah, probably not too far off, I would imagine, by the sounds of things. Otherwise, yeah, you're accepting PRs, so.
Yeah. We are accepting contributions. Like I said, the community is very friendly and very open to contributions. And it's in Linux Foundation, which is more easier to get commits in.
Yeah. Kunal Tiwari, he's asked a couple of questions. What data sets are supported, like SQL tables, Parquet, cloud storage, etc. And the user data getting picked up, is that via an LDAP integration or?
I didn't get the second part. Like the first part. Yeah, go on.
Oh, go for the first part then. Yeah.
The first part is we support a couple of databases: Hive, BigQuery, Snowflake, Redshift. I think MySQL. So it's all metadata. And what is the second part again?
I think the second part might be, so the people that are using, like doing the queries and things like that, how are you getting that data? Maybe he's talking in terms of the LDAP integration. Have you got like Microsoft Active Directory integration support or something like that? Or is that already landed in your data lake and that's how you're accessing it?
So the indexing people is through LDAP integration, and we have a tool that's within Lyft that displays every employee. So we were able to get that, connect to that service and get that information within Lyft. But there is integration with authentication and LDAP, which you can use to get all the user information. For SQL query and SQL query mapping to user, we do two things. One thing is we have audit logs that have username and SQL. And because we are Presto and Presto grammar is open, we used Antler to try and parse the SQL query and then extract the tables that this user is querying. We also have analytics events emitted through pre-hooks and post-hooks that can display the table name, that can get you the table name. So a variety of efforts to get the user to table mapping.
Yeah, I'm pretty impressed at like sort of the maturity and sort of how much you've like thought about a lot of these integrations and stuff like that. It's really cool. Couple more questions. Yeah, I think we've answered a couple of these. Yeah, you talked about sort of RBAC as being something on the roadmap, didn't you? That was one from Mitesh Chavda. I think Kunal Tiwari's first question has been already answered as well.
I want to add to that. So so on the table details page, we support table preview, which displays some data. And that's where RBAC is mostly sensitive, most sensitive there. So what we do is within Lyft, we had a superset integration, and superset had connections with LDAP. So we would just pass the user to superset, and superset would decide whether this user has permission. And if the user doesn't have permission, it'll throw an error. We'll say preview is not available. And I've heard ING used Apache Atlas, and they were able to build RBAC using Apache Atlas. So they swapped out the graph database and used Atlas. And Atlas has built-in RBAC, and it can let you prevent people editing metadata.
Yeah. that's pretty cool. So it sounds like there's a bit of flexibility there if you wanted to sort of implement yourself, but I guess, you know, you need to engineer out that thing by the sounds of it at the minute. I've got two more questions before I ask Nitish, Francisco, and Simon to ask some of the questions that they've got. Just wanted to ask, first of all, like, you displayed some, integrations like sort of snapshots of databases from analytics and linking to dashboard. You mentioned that there's Tableau support. Is, building integrations to other dashboarding tool like Redash or what you just mentioned, Superset, is that much of a challenge, or is it, is the...
So it depends on the APIs available. I think Redash and Tableau had the APIs available already, whereas Mode didn't have, so we had to work with them to make it available for us. But the good thing with Mode is we were able to tell exactly what information we need, and they were able to make it available. But with Tableau and Redash, the features that I showed might not work exactly. There might be some small changes here and there. I know the ownership information with Tableau is a bit tricky because the moment someone runs, there is some quirkiness with the ownership. If someone presses the refresh button to run the queries, it makes you the owner, even though you didn't create the dashboard or something like that. So there is that quirkiness with Tableau. So far, it seemed pretty straightforward from what I can tell, but obviously we haven't covered all the dashboarding tools.
Yeah, that's just way too many, isn't there?
Yeah, that's right. Visualization.
The last one is just on Neo4j. Haven't got a lot of experience with it, but scaling issues and things, you mentioned, obviously, you would have used backups because you've had cluster failures and stuff like that. How frequent and what sort of issues have you experienced?
Interestingly, we've never had much of an issue with Neo4j. In fact, we are on the community edition. We haven't even gotten the professional edition. So the professional edition comes up with auto backups, whereas with the community edition, you need to engineer the backups. We haven't had much of an issue once we had deployed it. So it was very surprising for us to find that. Yeah. The other thing is we don't index all the schemas. We whitelist the schemas, and we're very particular about which schema we are indexing. So that might contribute to the stability. It's not all the data. We choose the data we index, and we slow roll it. So that might be contributing to the stability.
Nice. Very cool. Simon, you had a question. Did you want to?
Oh yeah, I just had a really basic question about tables or schemas that change over time. How is that represented in the tool? So if you've got something like the addition of new columns or a table that evolves over time where an integer becomes a string field, how is that sort of time change represented in the tool?
So I don't remember how the data type change worked. But if you add a new column, or if you add a new column, when we run the data builder and we get all the tables and nodes, we would compare, and then we would say, okay, this is a new column that the graph doesn't have, and we'd add the column and the data type. Similarly, when a column gets deleted, we had a cleanup job that will look at the graph and then prune it out depending on the last access time. I don't remember how we did the data type change. Did we detect that was this was a new column, and then I think we would have detected that as a new column and added that. I'm not sure. I'm not positive about data type change. Yeah. Does that answer your question? Or?
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that there was something that represented schema change over time.
Yeah, we would also handle renames and things like that, but they would all be treated as new tables. We wouldn't recognize it as renamed from something that existed. We would just treat them as new.
Cool. Francisco and Nitish? Any questions?
Lagapan, that is a great presentation. I've got two questions. What were the non-technical challenges with adoption in different companies, including organizational, people, that could be something that we can watch out for?
Yeah, this wasn't the case with Lyft, but there are, I've heard that some of the companies have tried Amansen and it wasn't as successful, mainly because they've indexed all the tables and metadata from different data warehouses, but the data warehouse tables in the data warehouse themselves didn't have rich metadata. Like we at Lyft had an engineering process and where we would only approve if there's metadata, but here they didn't have it. So even though they indexed everything and the tool was there was no metadata. It didn't make much of sense. So some suggestions we had was to do something like a metadata hack day or something like that, where you would have everybody, all the analysts together, and then just edit the metadata on Amanson, or everybody across the company edit the metadata if the company size is pretty small. So that way you're encouraging people to update it, and then that way you can bootstrap metadata and then make it more useful. That was one thing that I've had. In terms of usage, Lyft, we developed at a time where people were seeing the pains of not having such a tool. Like I mentioned, the science on call would repeat the same answer multiple times within 1 week of on call, and there'll be 100 message thread. So as soon as the tool came, people adopted. There was a lot of friction around using Amundsen as a source of truth and not Hive or Presto. But what we were able to compile some numbers around how many people are editing it and what user persona it is. Things like we were seeing non-data scientists, non-analysts, non-data engineering editing the description. And in most cases, it was very, very valid update because they were very close to what they were doing. So people slowly started seeing the benefit of letting everybody in the company update the metadata. And we had audit logs and it was all logged in users. So there was no concern about malicious intent and things like that. Yeah, those are two things.
Awesome. That's like a crowdsourcing metadata generation just sounds like a really cool way of doing it. I think, yeah, I can imagine, you know, like a data engineering team must be a massive bottleneck for getting all of the metadata found with or like sorted out within a company. That sounds really good. Well, I just wanted to say thanks once again, Lagapan, for taking us through all of that. You know, I think it's kind of, we haven't really had a lot of talks about sort of mature data discovery tools in this space at the meetup so far. So I think it's probably going to spur on a lot of folks here in Sydney and the rest of Australia to give it a go. I sure will be. And hopefully we can get you back sometime to take us through any questions that we have.
Yeah, I hope there is we get more contributors from this part of the world. And also one other thing that I forgot to mention, this is October that's going on, which is you can contribute to any open source project. And we in Amanson have marked certain tasks as October tasks. So you can come in and then these are nice, easy first tasks that you can do. So if you're interested, you can start contributing and get some recognition for your contributions.
That'd be awesome. If you wanted to drop that in the Slack channel, I'm sure we'll get a few takers.
Yeah.
So yeah, Hacktober Fest happening right now. Thanks, Lagapan. So just the other couple of announcements again, just a reminder of AWS Community Day, Data Day. Beginners welcome. You know, we're sort of focusing on diversity as well. So whether you're a total pro at data or a total beginner, you're most welcome to submit. You know, we'd like to hear from everyone around the region and beyond. So do check that out. As always, like we'll have this recording up on our YouTube channel and you can continue the discussion on our Slack group. So thanks again, and a big shout out once again to Nitish for organizing this. Like, really do appreciate it. And you've got a couple of jobs going at Afterpay, don't you? So
we are always hiring. We're always looking for adventurous, innovative, and motivated data engineering people. And not just data engineers, software engineers, business people, analysts, all across the board.
Awesome. Well, yeah, that sounds really cool, and I'm sure you've got a really awesome data engineering team there. So I'm sure if you want to grow your career out in data engineering, that's a great place to give it a go. Thanks again, Simon and Francisco, co-organizers of the data engineering meetup. Really appreciate all your help and support. Ciao for now. See you next time.
Thanks all for coming today.
Thank you, guys. See you next time.
All right. Thanks, Peter. See you.
Thank you.
Thanks, lagapan.
Thank you.